Church, ACP Dr. Benjamin Agordzo, retired, is a former police chief, and his lawyer, coincidentally, his lawyer Martin Pebua.
Yeah, I represented him with my team, Komivi Jochi, Marcel, Nusbia, Hamdia, Mohamed, etc.
He's joining us on the telephone. ACP Dr. Benjamin Agordzo, good morning. Thank you for joining us here on Key Point.
Good morning, and my regards to all the panelists.
Great, and I understand you have some difficulty joining us on Zoom, but I appreciate your patience having to go through the process. Now, for you, knowing the processes of the Ghana Police Service, now there's been an admission that, yes, they held some protesters beyond the 48 hours as allowed by law. What they have done in the statement that they have issued is that they have referred this matter to the Police Professional Standards Bureau, formerly PIPS. There's a concern that any time that the police has investigated itself, we don't see the end of such investigations. Now, is it one that you would subscribe to, or knowing the internal measures in the police service, this matter can be investigated by them and then we would have some punitive measures taken?
Mr. Kansi, if you indulge me, I'd like to do some preliminary remarks here before I come to the main issue that you raised. First of all, I like to agree to some extent with my friend Dr. Adam Bona on the conduct of the demonstrators, Democracy Hub. I think they can do better, or they could have done better than what they did, and some of the comments they are alleged to have made were just unfortunate. But having said that, I like to also point out that police should be encouraged to see demonstrations as something that contributes to a peaceful country rather than one that destroys it. That's my first point. I like to also mention that demonstrations can be very loud. Demonstrators can be very enthusiastic. Demonstrators can even point and insult sometimes. The police officers, they could be boisterous. Yet those demonstrations could be deemed as peaceful. So, in a sense, demonstrations are not church processes where we think that everything should be in absolute terms peaceful, where they just feel like church people and then move on. I mean, we should not expect that. We should also note that even in developed countries that we are copying from, some of the demonstrations are very, very violent. We are not asking for violence, but when there is one, there are procedures and processes by which the police can act and deal with some of those things. And we must go in for those procedures, rather than the manner in which the police acted. Because they are professionals. If the police acted in the way they did, and as we have on tape and record, then what is the difference between the police and then the demonstrators that we are condemning? What is the difference between them? Between the two, there's no better one. So we should always encourage the police to be very professional. Why would you arrest onlookers? Why would you arrest people who were passers-by? Why would you arrest? I mean, the manner in which they did it was so unprofessional. And let us be minded about some of those things. Now, having said that, let me go back to the question that you asked. First of all, let me commend the police administration for admitting that there were two people who were detained beyond the 48 hours. And let me also link this with what my counsel, Mr. Pebu, said, that, you know, by 48 hours, the person should be in court. 48 hours should not be at the police station before you leave the court, because by that time you are over 48 hours. That's the first point. Another point I'm making. The second point on this 48 matter is this. When does detention start? Detention starts with arrest. The moment your movement is restrained by the police, you have been arrested, your movement has been restrained, and therefore the 48 hours start counting there. Technically, you must begin to appreciate that. Because you know something, the police can arrest you at 9 a.m., and they can go around with you in the whole of Accra and get to a police station by 7 p.m. When does the arrest start? It starts at 9. So the 48 hours must start counting by 9 a.m., not at 7 p.m. that you have been formally put into detention. The moment you are arrested and your movement has been restrained, it means that the 48 hours starts counting. And I believe that our lawyers must begin to agitate on this matter. Then back to the issue of professional standards unit. I admit that the police could investigate some of these things, but not when an issue of such a national character has been raised. Police denied it initially, and now they have admitted it. Why should police investigate itself? I mentioned elsewhere yesterday that we have something we call esprit de corps in the Ghana police, in the police service generally in the world. When police investigate themselves, they tend to be lenient towards themselves. They tend to support themselves. They tend to vindicate themselves. And I'll give you two examples. In 2016, I think whether 2016 or 2015, during the Let My Vote Count demonstration, where a lot of people were beaten, including Gabi, the police set up a committee by itself and they vindicated themselves. And I can tell you that at the end of the day, I was at the police headquarters, they vindicated themselves. They felt that they did the right things. Again, I recall the one at I mentioned yesterday when a guy was killed. The police professional standards unit was asked to investigate it. At the end of the day, we have not seen the report. So what is the guarantee that with this, the police are going to do a good job? My point is that, in essence, in other democracies like UK, Malawi, and other places, we have what we call independent police complaints commissions, which investigate such things, such issues, to increase public confidence in the police complaint system. But in the absence of such independent police complaints commission, we could have the Minister for Interior coming out with an independent committee to investigate the police, but not allowing the police to investigate themselves. Because if the police investigates itself in this matter, there will be cover-ups. I can assure you that there will be cover-ups. I have been a police officer for 36 years, so when I say certain, and I've served at certain strategic levels, and I know what I'm talking about. I'm just giving you an example of the Let My Vote Count demonstration and how police investigated itself and then vindicated itself. Although people's eyes were gouged and all kinds of things, they vindicated themselves. I remember police were using hoods at the time. They still vindicated themselves. So what is the guarantee that police are not going to vindicate themselves in this kind of matter? I am strongly of the view that the IGP, Mr. Dan Parry, does not have the moral authority at this time to investigate itself or himself in this matter. He's been involved in it from day one, and therefore the Minister for Interior should take up the matter and investigate it. Those are my comments. I don't know whether you have some questions on this matter, and I can continue.
Indeed, you want the another body there
yes.
to take it up. And this time you want the Interior Ministry to want to invest. But then again, that is also an agency of the state. I've heard proposals for an independent inquiry into this.
And that's exactly what I mean. I'm talking about a situation where the Minister for the Interior will set up an independent committee. A committee made up of independent-minded people to investigate this matter and come out with reports that will improve our service delivery and other things, especially when it comes to demonstration. But we cannot afford to ask the police to investigate themselves in this kind of matter. Because you see, we have clear guidelines when it comes to demonstration and policing demonstrations. The police must deal with it in accordance with those principles. Let me give you a typical example. In 2016, we developed what we call the Ghana Police Incident Public Order Management, Ghana Police Incident and Public Order Management Manual 2016, which we call IFOM, which was by DFID, now FTDO, and it was to harmonize all the public order tactics that we've had. Remember, we had some from the French, the British, and other people, and the Asians and other people. So we harmonized them, and these things are available. So you don't just go on rounding up passers-by, onlookers, and all kinds of people, and even those who were breaching the laws. You have a procedure by which you must deal with them. We must have warnings to them. We must have speakers, microphones that we should use when we are going for such demonstration. We never saw some of these things. None of those things were shown. We never saw it. Those warnings, human rights issues are all embedded in it. We see people's rights being violated. And we are talking about the people who have been violating the rights. No, your lawyers, look, let me give you an example. My lawyer, Martin Taibu, is seated there. He had to fight at the BNI before I was allowed, before he himself and my family was allowed to see me. And in the BNI, for instance, you cannot visit somebody even twice in a week. Once, if you come the second time, you'll be frustrated. And even the first time, it will take you about 5 hours. Up at the top of his head, voice, because he was allowed as my lawyer to see me. And subsequently, there were frustrations. They could not do that. Look at the treated fact that the Attorney General presented at the court. And I am used to this kind of thing because my facts were treated against me. We cannot practice our democracy in this way. There are ethical values embedded in our democratic principles. And this Attorney General, we must call him to order. This kind of continuous cheating and fabrication of facts must stop.
Well, and
he must stop.
Dr. Agordzo,
somewhere.
You're right. Now, to the extent that in other jurisdictions, when incidents like this happen, it informs conversations about what has to be done going forward to improve on systems and structures so such situations are not repeated. This is not going to be the last of the demonstrations we're going to have in this country. Yes. What has to be put in place to ensure that incidents like this are not repeated going forward?
Thank you very much. You know, there have been a lot of commissions of inquiry in the past. From the pre-colonial days, the most important one that is very interesting is the ASU committee, ASU commission report. And all these things have been talking about demonstration, policing demonstrations, and all kinds of things. But at the end of it all, some of the things that we could take is training. And not just training, but problem-based training. Not just problem-based training, but problem-based training that is to do what Professor Tuguba calls historical institutionalism. And what is historical institutionalism? Police have a psyche as to how they have a subculture, as to how they do their own thing. And I have sat in class many years ago where an instructor will tell you when they just beat them up. That is the historical institutionalism we are talking about. Problem-based learning, that will unlearn some of these things that Professor Tuguba called historical institutionalism. And I think that I call this a traditional institutional behavioral architecture that we must change. We must not just do that, we must also insist on curriculum renewal programs at all levels, from basic to cadet, and then to even assistant commissioners and all kinds of things. I remember that during Alasan's time, you cannot become an assistant commissioner or any position without, not Alasan, I think at year 2 and Alasan. You cannot do that without going for any training. And there must be training before you are promoted. These days, you are just picked and promoted. And people are even, their juniors are promoted above others based on the perception of the IGP alone. And these are matters before court now that we must deal with. Okay. So we are talking about not just, let me finish here, we are not talking about just any training or some kind of training. We are not talking about training that is counterproductive. The training that shares negative experiences. The training that will undo the negatives so that we can learn new things. And it must also go along with institutional building and empowerment of the people, of the police service, and then the citizens as well. No. These are some of the things that we can deal with.
Dr. Benjamin Agordzo, I thank you so much for your input as well and your intervention. Thank you for joining us here on Key Point. I know you're doing the listening as we go on. Dr. Benjamin Agordzo is retired Assistant Commissioner of Police, and also he said he did his PhD in what?
Human rights. In
human rights. So speaking to the issues and the recommendations as to what has to be done going forward, because this certainly doesn't have to be seen as an event. A number of things must improve going forward so we don't find ourselves in this situation again. As we have seen, as Dr. Bonan says, there's been improvement, but it didn't come automatically. There was that deliberate effort to improve on situations. We cannot continue this way and expect to be doing the same things and expect different results. We'll go for this quick break. When we're back, we'll conclude on this matter because I need to move into
2 minutes on.
Yes.
The fact that the 37 has other entrances, etc.
Detention.